physical showed that he had dropped 20 pounds, which moved him from obese to overweight. Trump has never publicly said he is on a GLP-1, and when reached for comment, the White House did not address questions about how the president lost the weight. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said Trump is, quote, in peak physical and mental condition. I'll tell you, we also reached out to the White House for comment. We got that exact same response about what a brilliant specimen of man he is. But Dr. Kessler goes on to say this, quote, the most revealing aspect of the president's medical report was the list of drugs he is taking, which includes a combination that amounts to what doctors call intensive lipid-lowering therapy, a treatment usually reserved for patients who are at significant risk of cardiac disease. That drug regimen seems to be working. His LDL, the bad cholesterol, has dropped dramatically in recent years. So what Dr. David Kessler says he sees in President Trump's medical report is a success story. Success against conditions that tens of millions of Americans struggle with, namely obesity and cardiac disease. And that success, that progress in the president's own health report appears to be largely thanks to medical science. The president is on these two cholesterol-lowering drugs, this intensive lipid-lowering therapy for people at risk of cardiac disease. That treatment really appears to be working for him. We do not know if the president's documented weight loss is thanks to Ozempic or Wegovy or any similar drug. Certainly no shame if it is. Any such drug is not listed in his medical report. The White House will not say one way or the other when they are asked. And I know I said this was a little oogie to talk about because this feels personal, but the point of this is not necessarily the president's personal health. The point here is that the president of the United States appears to be improving his own health through access to great medical care and great medical science. That's what he gets. Simultaneously, his administration is doing so much to hurt regular Americans' opportunity to achieve those same good health outcomes the same way. The National Institutes of Health, the government research agency that produces much of the science for these specific drugs and countless others, Trump has slashed its budget and nearly $2 billion in research grants there have been canceled. The FDA shepherds drugs to market and makes sure they are safe. The FDA is reeling from huge staffing cuts, and the staff that is there can't complete basic tasks because, among other things, their government credit cards have been frozen. Trump and his allies in Congress are currently debating how many hundreds of billions of dollars they're going to cut from Medicaid, which provides health insurance to tens of millions of Americans. And as for those GLP-1 weight loss drugs that can be a lifesaver for so many people, well, Trump has rescinded a Biden administration proposal to have those drugs covered by Medicare. Even as the White House says maybe weight loss drugs will get a big price cut. They'll solve it with deals, if you want to believe that. But they're undoing the plan to have them covered by Medicare, which puts at risk the opportunity for tens of millions of Americans to benefit from those kinds of drugs. President Trump is personally benefiting in his own health from the scientific and medical infrastructure the U.S. government has built up over decades. He is simultaneously in the process of destroying that infrastructure for everyone else. Joining us now is former FDA Commissioner Dr. David Kessler. He has a new book that is coming out tomorrow. It's called Diet, Drugs, and Dopamine, the New Science of Achieving a Healthy Weight. Dr. David Kessler, congratulations on the book. First of all, let me say, I brought home the galley when I last saw you. I read it. My partner read it. We then handed it to a neighbor who also wanted to read it. I really appreciate you writing this, particularly given your expertise in this field and so many others. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Rachel.
So first, let me just ask you if I accurately represented your take on the president's medical report and why you think it's worth understanding in terms of how he is governing, how he is managing health policy in the country.
You know, weight is such a fraught subject. There's so much stigma attached to it, but it's not about weight. It's really about health. You got the facts exactly right. Let's just go through them. The president had a cardiac scan that showed some plaque buildup, and they put him on 2 lipid-lowering drugs. What no one has said about those 2 lipid-lowering drugs is what those are called is intensive lipid-lowering therapy, ezetimibe, rosuvastatin, and they're working. His lipids dropped dramatically from 143 to 51. I mean, that reduces the risk of heart attack, that prolongs life. But the key, as you said, is the science of those drugs was worked out by research funded by the NIH and shepherded by the FDA. The president is destroying those institutions that gave birth to the drugs that are benefiting him.
Broke the record for the oldest person to become president. And 9 months in, I gotta say, the guy doesn't look great. He's got a reoccurring bruise on his hand. He's constantly trying to cover up makeup. He's got severely swollen ankles, which the White House attributes to a very common condition among senior citizens. But it's more than that. Mentally, the guy seems off. He's constantly drifting off during meetings, unable to properly understand questions from reporters, rambling even more than he did during his first term. And that problem is compounded by the fact the administration is among the least transparent we've ever seen. Just take a look at this official White House announcement about the president's schedule just today. Quote, on Friday morning, President Trump will visit Walter Reed Medical Center for a planned meeting and remarks with the troops. While there, President Trump will stop by for his routine yearly checkup. He will then return to the White House. President Trump is considering going to the Middle East shortly thereafter. Wait, what was that part sandwiched in the middle there? Oh, the president's going to talk to the troops at Walter Reed and, hey, while you're there, might as well pop in for the yearly checkup. But here's the thing, Donald Trump already had his annual checkup. It was in April. Here's the official White House readout from that visit, the one where they said he's 6'2" and 224 pounds, which is, by the way, the same height and weight as Patrick Mahomes. But if you're concerned about the president needing 2 physicals in 1 year, have no fear. Trump says he's doing just fine.
I think I'm in great shape, but I'll let you know. But I have no difficulty thus far. Is there wood around here? I'm knock on. No difficulty. Physically, I feel very good. Mentally, I feel very good. You know, I did about 6-7 months ago. I do physicals. I like to, when I'm around, I like to check. I also did a cognitive exam, which is always very risky because if I didn't do well, you'd be the first to be blaring it. And I had a perfect score. And one of the doctors said he's almost never seen a perfect score. I had a perfect score. I got the highest score. And that made me feel good.
Trump didn't let us know, though. He didn't take questions as he...
President Trump's massive demolition of the East Wing is now complete. Satellite pictures show what the White House complex looked like just a month ago. And here's the scope of the destruction on Thursday, with the East Wing of the building entirely gone. It'll be replaced with part of President Trump's 90,000 square foot ballroom, the cost of which has now ballooned to $350 million. The money is expected to come from private donors, including Comcast, the current parent company of MSNBC. As the demolition of the East Wing got underway this week, President Trump reversed course on what he said earlier this summer about the project.
It won't interfere with the current building. It'll be near it, but not touching it, and pays total respect to the existing building, which I'm the biggest fan of. It's my favorite place. I love it. We determined that after really a tremendous amount of study with some of the best architects in the world, we determined that really knocking it down, trying to use a little section, you know, the East Wing was not much. In order to do it properly, we had to take down the existing structure.
Well, come on. This is the people's house. There are rules. There are procedures. And once again, everyone's been talking about how the destruction of the East Wing is a perfect metaphor for this administration, and it absolutely is. He could not care less about what the East Wing means to the American people. He couldn't care less about the role of Congress. He couldn't care less about the role of accountability. He is running roughshod over the country, and that right there, what we're watching right there, is just the perfect metaphor. I can't tell you how upset this makes me.
There's a couple of things for me. Is one, the reason that when people go to the White House, they go, wait, it's so much smaller than I expected. That was the point, because our founders, as nightmarish as they were on some policies, like slavery, they knew that the kind of place that they wanted the head of state to live in wanted to be more. They wanted it to be more humble. They didn't want it to be huge. They didn't want it to look like a palace. That's why it's not gold encrusted until recently, kings. Right? That was very important to them. Two, he lied about not destroying it. A couple months ago, when this first came out, they said they weren't going to touch the East Wing.
I just heard him say it.
And then They completely destroyed it without telling anybody. Well, the reporters just saw it happening. Also, they added how much money it was going to be, another 50% of how much it's going to be. And that money is being raised by all of these billionaires and corporations.
Privately.
Right. And apparently the president, he said he's going to throw some money in. But the problem with that, and Kimberly Ackenstor said it better than I can, but when that is happening and it's not tax dollars, there's no accountability.
Right.
And those folks are going to want something for giving money to that house.
And that, in the course of my reporting calls yesterday, I wanted to get a sort of the preservationist archival perspective on this. And I talked with Colleen Shogan, who was the former head of the National Archives, who was fired by Trump earlier this year and has dedicated her life to archiving historical documents. And she said, most reasonable people might agree, okay, maybe the construction of a ballroom isn't the craziest idea. When people go to the state dinner, they have to go to the bathroom in porta potties. Maybe they want something nicer.
Not the gowns and the porta potties.
But her issue is the way it has been.
We've talked about this before, Trump's health. And I don't just mean the metaphorical kind, like his ideas being toxic or his behavior being unhealthy for the country. I mean, literally, he doesn't seem like a well man. Think back to when he first ran for president in 2015. I didn't have a channel back then, but I remember that so-called medical report he released. People immediately noticed something was off. The doctor who signed it came across as, let's just say, unconventional. The whole thing felt more like a PR stunt than an actual medical evaluation. And even then, Trump wasn't exactly a young candidate. He wasn't ancient, but he was older than most people running for the job. It wasn't like Obama in his 40 seconds or Bush in his 50 seconds. Trump was already in that late 60 seconds range where health starts becoming a real concern, especially under the stress of a presidency. And now, all these years later, that concern has only grown. For a while, everyone's attention shifted to Biden's health, the stumbles, the speech slips, but once you look past that, you realize Trump's condition might be just as alarming, if not more. He's pushing 80, visibly heavier, and his mental sharpness seems to be fading in ways you can't really ignore anymore. You can see it in his day-to-day behavior, the random outbursts, the strange, rambling interviews, the way he talks about things like going to heaven. It's not just odd, it's almost like he's facing his own mortality head on. And to be clear, I'm not trying to make this about religion. Personally, I'm Christian, but I don't believe in hell, so I'm not here wishing that fate on anyone. Still, the way he's been fixating on death and legacy feels different, almost desperate. He keeps talking about building ballrooms, naming things after himself, leaving a mark that will outlast him. It's something people do when they sense time is running out. They start trying to cement their legacy to build monuments to themselves. And honestly, as strange as it sounds, maybe that ballroom obsession says more than he realizes. There have even been quiet rumors floating around, nothing verified, that he might be facing a serious, possibly terminal illness. Whether that's true or not, it's clear he believes something is wrong. You can see it in the way he carries himself now, like a man who knows his health is slipping faster than he's willing to admit.